was Reverend Doyang 교무님 said at this retreat we will focus on 6 items of mindfulness or heedfulness in daily practice. This is from one chapter from the principal book of One Buddhism. That's the direction of this year's practice by the newly elected head Dharma master Venerable Johnson. He is sixth head Dharma now. Some of you visited One Buddhist headquarters located in Iksan city in Korea. Do you know around 50 years ago, because of some explosion accident, exactly 1/3 of the city was destroyed. It resulted in 59 deaths. 1,343 people were injured. 7,800 people became homeless. It started from a very small incident. One train employee happened to fall asleep with a candle burning in a freight car. I think it was pretty cold in the winter, and the candle happened to fall down, and the flame caught the sleeping bag, and the fire spread to the explosive substance. 1/3 of the city were destroyed because of that. It started from a very small mindfulness. Can you hear me? Yeah. Small mindlessness or carelessness. These days, lots of medical doctors study the benefits of meditation. According to one study, as you know, when our mind is focused and peaceful, the dominant brain waves that especially comes out our frontal lobe is alpha waves. According to his study, if you meditate 15 or 20 minutes, 3 or 4 times in a week, the amount of alpha waves that comes out from your brain when you are involved in your daily activities is several times higher than that of the non-meditator. In other words, even though you sit on the cushion many times with lots of thoughts and sleepiness, but still, your mind, the tranquility, the benefit of a meditation go half of the day or the whole day. It also starts from just 15 minutes of mindfulness practice. So, the secret of success, not just in our practice, but in our life, maybe whether we are mindful or not, in some important area. My teacher told me the most precious thing in our life is mindfulness or heedfulness, or the most dreadful thing just like that train in Florence, he did not do that with a bad intention. It's a carelessness, mindfulness. But if we pay attention to many things, if we are supposed to be mindful of too many things, it will exhaust us. It will not work. The practice would become a burden, not a fun thing. So what can be some important areas of mindfulness? So that if you are mindful in these several areas, then everything can be solved. For example, we have to be mindful to strict the diet, to exercise, lock the door, whatever things. Letting go of our attachment, letting go of comparing mind, jealousy, etc. We need to be mindful so many things. But if we are mindful of these 6 items, not 60, 6 items, then everything will follow. It is worthwhile to try. Okay, you can read this later. To our One Dharma Center member, I think I showed this picture. It's some deserted area, some desert in Arizona. 60 years ago. This area was transformed into a very happy village. What happened? Because of this dam. What's the name of this dam? Hoover. Because of this Hoover Dam, they redirect the water channel. This dam gather lots of water. And because of this collected water of a huge amount, they built hydroelectric power plant, which constantly generate electricity. So this deserted area, because of the electricity, became a happy town. Because of the electricity, they could use a washer, brighten their house, heat up their, all etc. Our third head Dharma master, Venerable Dosung, used this analogy. Collecting water, it's like collecting a lot of energy, chi energy. By practicing sitting meditation or chanting, basically be away from our sensory experience to conserve the energy. That's the spiritual cultivation, collecting water and creating electricity is brightening our mind, illuminating our innate wisdom. And using our mind is enriching these people's life by using electricity, so by using our mind in a wise, compassionate way. Specifically speaking, making a very good and wise choice in every situation, then we can enrich our life. So spiritual cultivation of wisdom, and mindful choice in action is called threefold practice or threefold training. When somebody asks you what is the Buddhist training, the answer is very simple. Buddhist training is mind practice, mind training, making our mind calm and focused. Spiritual cultivation, making our mind wise. That's the study part, cultivation of wisdom, and using our mind well by mindful choice in action. So it's a so-called the threefold study. These 6 items of heedfulness in daily practice is composed of these 3 areas: calming down, brightening, and using our mind well. So the specific technique is here. Why don't we read together number 5 or together? 5. To cultivate the spirit.
Be faithful to practice reciting the Buddha's name or practicing meditation, either during the time before going to bed, after completing any remaining household affairs, after supper, or else early in the morning.
Okay, founding master is very generous. After completing any remaining household affairs before going to bed, it's very practical. It is something we can do easily. So if we have available time, what did he ask? Some people become mindful to watch YouTube or watch phone to our friend. That's not bad. Well, in order to refresh our mind, sometimes we need that. But that's not something we need to become mindful. We automatically, many times, do that. So what we need to be mindful is when we have available time, whether it's 15 minutes or 20 minutes before retiring to bed or early in the morning, be mindful to practice meditation, whether it's chanting, lying down meditation, it does not matter. Do you know the turning point of human history? Because of this incident, the development of a human civilization start to advance exponentially all of a sudden. People, when they wandered around from a nomadic life, and then people eventually, 3,000 or 4,000 years, they started to settle down in one place in order to cultivate the crops. And then, for the first time in human history, they first came to have a selfless, and the division of labor got furthered. And society became more structured. It all started from settling down in one place. Likewise, if your mind start to settle down, all kind of a benefit will arise. If you'd like to become compassionate, you first need to settle down your mind. If you like to make your mind wiser, you first make your mind calm and focused. if you'd like to lead a life of gratitude, if your mind become calm and focused, you will discover lots of grace or gratitude in your life. So whether it's a 15 minutes, 20 minutes, so why don't we have some time for spiritual cultivation? It's one of the items of mindfulness. Spiritual cultivation. The second part, generating electricity. It's cultivating wisdom. What's the fundamental reason that humans suffer? Just one word. Attachment, yeah. Yeah. That's not the answer that I want. Okay. But then it's all correct. But more fundamentally speaking, Buddha said, avidya. Avidya means ignorance, not seeing. Avidya means, yes, the Sanskrit means not seeing, ignorance, darkness. Because of darkness, attachment or unwholesome desire arises. What's the ignorance? Jesus said the truth will set you free. So in order to set our life free, lead a liberated life, we have to know the truth first. Know the truth first. So what does the Heart Sutra says in the first paragraph? When Bodhisattva, our great compassion, when he realized 5 aggregates are empty, when he realized the reality of our true self, then he became free from all suffering and distress. Wisdom is that much important. I think why animals suffer more than humans, because they are not that intelligent. How can we cultivate the wisdom? One of the easiest way is, why don't we borrow the wisdom of enlightened masters? We do not have to wait for us to attain great enlightenment. It's a shortcut. It starts in this way. I worked when I moved to the States in 2000. I worked at the One Institute of the Graduate Studies where Reverend Grace Song worked for 10 years, and then I moved to this retreat center. When we made One Dharma Center website, with our staff decided to post the film of our Dharma talk of all the ministers. One day I happened to hear my Dharma talks. I was so embarrassed. My pronunciation was terrible. But nobody pinpointed, said very honestly, or this or that pronunciation needs to be fixed, corrected. Just like we do not know ourselves objectively, just like we cannot see the back of our head. So we need some people, some Dharma friend or teacher who can honestly tell something so that we can walk on the proper path. So-called we need a teacher. Our third head Dharma master said, the first teacher is a scripture. The first teacher is the scripture. That's why, why don't we read it together? Number 3. 3.
Be heedful to study and practice scripture when you have free time.
Some years ago, I drove to Iksan City with my friend who was between jobs. You know, Korean navigator is so precise and sophisticated. And when I drove, it tells in a very meticulous way. You have to go right, and after 100 meters, there is some camera, etc. And my friend told me, I wish I have a navigator for my life to guide me to the perfect path. So I told him, I showed him one Buddhist scripture. This is that navigator. If you read that, not only your practice, but your whole life will be guided. You know what? In Asia, before people practice sitting meditation, they are usually required, especially for Tibetan monks or Zen priests are required to study scripture for several years. And then they are allowed to join 3 months or 6 months retreat. So we do not have to copy that model, but studying scripture and the practicing should be carried out in tandem or together. So in order to, they usually say there are 3 levels or kinds of knowledge or wisdom. The first level is knowledge, something you attained from books or from other people's Dharma talk, etc. It's the borrowed knowledge or wisdom. It may not be your own thing, but after you read something, after you read something, you contemplate and you start to internalize. It says, study and practice the scripture. 연습. Sub means practice. And it became internalized and it has become your own thing. That is so-called the wisdom. A little, one level up than knowledge. But there is another level of wisdom. We usually call that prajna. Jnana in Sanskrit means knowledge or wisdom. Pra means utmost, before. That is the first wisdom. Prajna. It is something, some level of wisdom which you do not have to cultivate. It's just something that's already within ourselves. That's why we meditate, in order to let it manifest. So in order to reveal prajna or our innate wisdom, so studying scripture is not enough. We have to work with some spiritual questions. In Zen tradition, we usually call that koan. Koan literally means, the Chinese literally means a public document. This is the criterion that tells you whether your awakening is authentic or not. That can be the criterion, koan, gong'an. When I was a junior high, from time to time, I experienced some impermanent feeling. Sometimes it's very acute. I still vividly remember when I watched at that time the movie Romeo and Juliet. For no reason, I was really entrapped by some feeling of impermanence and very strong, some questioning mind. The question arose in my mind. I felt like I was entrapped in a very small space in some barrel. And I did not know that kind of a question was a koan, but I was 14 years old at the time. So when our mind becomes very calm and empowered, that kind of questions very naturally arise. So, Kathy, why don't you read this part? This part, yeah. Yeah, when explaining.
When explaining the essential discourse on spiritual cultivation, the great master said, driven by great motivation and spiritual search, when a practitioner's study and practice have reached a certain depth, he becomes so preoccupied with one great question that all other questions merge into one. Whether one is asleep or awake, or whether one sees or hears, every word, silence, action, and rest turns into that question, so that the entire heaven and earth seem to be surrounded by it. Then suddenly, once one attains a thought that breaks through that one great question, all doubts dissipate, and genuine wisdom arises. Since the wisdom you have attained by seeing, listening, and thinking is only the first step to the first door in a long sequence of doors in attaining the genuine wisdom, you are not to be satisfied with what you have acquired so far.
Thank you. But to many practitioners, that kind of a question is not that strong. So masters created a very skillful method for people to get enlightened, contemplating on spiritual question. Those cases of questions are, you can read later, for example, all dharmas return to one. Where does one return? Or what's the sound of one hand clapping? Which defy our logical thinking. So along with practicing meditation, contemplating this question is very important. In the Rinzai tradition, one of the main meditation school, and since working with the koan is a shortcut to enlightenment, so teachers in that tradition recommend you have to work with those questions 24/7. So in our tradition, one tradition or Soto tradition, when we practice sitting meditation, we just feel our breath. But in the Rinzai tradition, in Korea, the dominant Buddhist school, Joge order, follows the Rinzai tradition. When they practice sitting meditation, they contemplate these koans. But we do not have to follow that model strictly, but from time to time, contemplate this question is critically important. Without the question, you cannot get the answer. Very simple. So Buddha or our founding master raised a lot of questions to the mystery of life and the universe. And then they eventually solved that. So we can contemplate these spiritual questions, but at the same time, in our daily life, we need to study and contemplate some practical questions, like number 2. Before engaging in all actions, observe the circumstances and be heedful to study in advance. For example, how can I educate my children well? Or how can I become more successful in my career, or whatever? Or how can I deepen my meditation practice, whatever area? Working very hard is important. Sometimes we need to stop our mind and contemplate, step back and contemplate, what's the problem? Why do I have this obstacle? That kind of studying or contemplation is as much as important as working very hard. For example, in order to enter the house, let's just say we are thieves. Instead of breaking the door, why don't you first try to find the key? It's under the rock. Yeah. Skillful way is very important. Yeah. It's the or wisdom part. Studying scripture. Number 3, contemplating with the koan. Number 4, or number 2, observe the circumstances and be heedful to study and obey. It's the path to cultivate the wisdom, absolute wisdom as well as a practical wisdom as well. When I worked at the One Institute, I registered on the Bali Fitness Center. After 3 years, the monthly fee became $17. So cheap, $17 in a month. One day I happened to ask, how it could be that cheap? Huh? How can you run this fancy place? The staff told me, a lot of people register at our fitness center. Less than 20% actually come to the fitness center. That's why the monthly fee can be very low. So the fruit of our meditation is number 1. This is our new head Dharma master really emphasized. Be heedful to make choices with a sound thought. Depending on our choice, our life can be very happy or suffering. Think about your occupation, so what you chose, or your spouse, your wife or husband, to what you chose. Many of you have heard the name Tara Brach, the teacher, very good teacher. Before she became full-time Dharma teacher, she joined lots of retreat. One day, when she came back from 2-week silent retreat, she discovered her husband did not pay the electric bill, etc. So she has to, when she opened the envelope, she discovered she had to pay a lot of late fee. At the time, she should be on the budget. So she yelled to her husband, just like before. But her husband stopped for a moment and with a very quiet voice and answered to her, Tara, is that what you learned from the retreat? What she expected was he yelled her back. That's what they did for many years. But that his quiet response really shook her mind, and it really lingered in her mind and heart for a long time. So our founding master made it very clear what is a dead religion, what is a dead practice, as opposed to a life, a living practice or religion. The practice of our religion that's separated from our real life is dead religion and the dead practice. So when we practice, when we have when you hold the retreat here, many times we ask to recite this passage when we encounter some challenging situation. Instead of saying, "You drive me crazy," but we as a practitioner should say, "You drive me to practice." So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. At that moment, we needed to be impatient. We needed to be persevering. That is the fruit of our practice. Otherwise, our life can be just a nice-looking tree with a beautiful flower. It does not have any fruit. So number one is the apex of our practice. So in this retreat, let's contemplate these 6 items. And our founding master said after he finished writing the canon part, this is 선약, which means wonder drug. Wonder drug. As long as you take these things, you can be cured from your illness or suffering. Thank you.